All right. Well, good morning, Tamara. It is so good to see your face and finally get the opportunity to chat.
Good
We are
morning.
both Noblesville residents, which I think is
Yes.
super exciting to actually talk to someone who has this huge heart for diversity and inclusion and also is a community member. So we don't really know each other, although we don't live that far apart. So thank you for agreeing to just talk a little bit about some of the work that you're doing both in your professional life, in your writing life, and then your engagement with the Noblesville Diversity Coalition. So I would love to just start with tell us just a little bit about who you are and kind of how you came to this place.
Sure. Well, by day, in addition to being an NDC member, I am the Vice President of Community Leadership and Effective Philanthropy at Central Indiana Community Foundation. So we are your community foundation. That includes the Indianapolis Foundation and the Hamilton County Community Foundation. Um, and I am also a writer who specializes in race and gender and kind of the ways they intersect with politics and pop culture and current events. My work has appeared in outlets like the New York Times, The Atlantic, Cosmopolitan, Ebony. My first book, The Sisters Are All Right, Changing the Broken Narrative of Black Women in America, came out in 2015. And finally, 6 years later, my second book is coming out in a few weeks now on March 9th, and that is Dear Black Girl, Letters from Your Sisters on Stepping into Your Power.
Oh, okay. So let's go there. So tell me a little bit about that book, describe it for me, and then just yeah, tell us what it's about and why you wrote it.
Sure, it is more than 30 letters from Black women to Black girls, wrapped in my analysis. And those letters are feminist and anti-racist and body positive and LGBTQ positive. And they're meant to feel like a warm hug to girls that live in a world that doesn't always like Black people and doesn't always like girls very much. And the idea for the book came after I was doing a workshop with two dear friends, Dr. Carolyn Strong and Dr. Tiffany Dent. And we were doing like this intergenerational discussion with moms and girls. And I just had this idea on a whim that, like, what if each of the girls got a letter from a Black woman in their goodie bag to as they leave? And I put out a call on social media for 12 letters, and I got more than 50 instead from all over the world. I got one from a woman living in Switzerland, and it was amazing. The first one that I read was like, made me ugly cry. It was wonderful. Like I needed it. Like I could only
Right.
imagine the effect it would have on a teenage girl. And I was like, this has to go beyond here. So I still collect letters and get them to Black girls, but because I have the work and life and all of those other things, I can't get every letter to every Black girl. And I thought a book would be a good way to make sure that these messages are in the hands of the right people.
Yeah, so give me an example of something that you feel like is the perfect thing that's written, not the perfect thing, but what's written in one of those letters. Like, give me an idea of what is one of the women saying to one of the girls.
So, there are a few things, for another project I'm working on about how we raise Black girls to be all right.
Mm,
I interviewed a lot of girls from Noblesville. I interviewed some Black
mm,
girls that go to Noblesville schools, and they talked about a lot of ways that when you're in a majority white environment, how your identity and your self esteem can get battered. So for instance, beginning to think that you're not pretty, which is really important sometimes to high school girls because your features are demeaned. And so there's a woman in the book that writes about being growing up a dark skinned Black girl and learning to be comfortable in her skin, even though very often when she watched TV or when she looked around at what other people were saying was pretty, it didn't look like her. Um, There are letters written by women about mental health and about sometimes we don't feel great, and it's okay to say that, and to get help and to speak out. There are letters about identity, about feeling good about being a Black girl or feeling good about being a biracial girl, and how sometimes it might feel like you're not accepted anywhere. And so needing to, hold on to, yourself as a special and valuable being. There are women who talk about hard things like sexual assault, and, being teenage moms and being incarcerated. But then there are other letters about like being a good friend and what it's like to have a great friendship, or, what it's like to have a difficult relationship with your mom or your dad, or just basic advice on, hey, here's how to think of your career. Here's how you think about your passions in life. And, I think my goal was that I want Black girls to see themselves in all of the awesome ways that they show up. So, the great ways, the challenging ways, all of that. I wanted them to be able to pick up the book and say, yeah, I get that. That's me. I relate to this.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, I love that. How many letters are there?
30, over 30, like it's about 35. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like you've created this knowing of someone ahead of them, to
Hmm.
know that it's possible both in the really good and the really hard, and to see this community. Talk a little bit about that importance of representation, and why you felt like you needed to collect some letters to offer to these young Black girls.
So I think very often, when you read things about Black girls, well, I know this as a Black woman, when people say this is for women, this message is for women, what they really mean is white women. And very often that happens with Black girls as well. No one is speaking to their specific messages and their specific experiences. Now, we know that we have a lot of this as women. We have a lot of the same experiences. We both experience like sexism. We just experience it in different ways because of our identities. So there's a lot we can come together around, and coalesce and talk about, but there are a lot of things that are specific to us. And so I wanted to write a book that was specific to Black girls and centered their experiences that don't get centered a lot. And that doesn't mean, like, I think if you were to read this book, a white girl, a Latinx girl were to read this book, you would still find things that resonate with you and speak to you. But I wanted to center Black girls' experiences.
Yeah, I love that. Just in terms of the female experience, and
Mhm,
seeing that, and the uniqueness in terms of our identities. I think that's really powerful
mhm.
in terms of that. Um, what would be, so I'm just going to ask the obvious question. I am not a Black girl. But if someone's listening to this and their skin looks like mine at some level, not that all of our skin looks the same, but why what would be the benefit for me to read this, or for my daughter to read this?
I think it's two things. I think, one of the ways that we can learn to live with each other is to know each other better. And I think for, white people, white women, white girls who are allies to Black women and their Black friends, part of being an ally is listening and learning to us and
Mhm.
learning about our experiences. And I think this gives you an opportunity to do that while also possibly hearing, reading some things that are valuable to you.
Mhm.
Like I said, white women don't feel pretty all the time. There are times when you feel sad and distressed and need some advice about, your hobbies and your passions and those things. So I think the advice that these women gave, is wonderful for all girls, but it also gives you an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, yeah, that's super. Thank you. Thank
Mhm,
you so much for that. So I'm just going to turn us just a
mhm,
little bit. And so I know you've been engaged with the Noblesville Diversity
mhm,
Coalition. And so why, I know you're busy, you've got lots of things
mhm.
going. Why would you choose to invest your time and energy in the Noblesville Diversity Coalition?
Because you know, when I moved here, I moved to Noblesville in 2004. And there was a lot about the community that actually, I'm a native of Gary, Indiana. I grew up in Miller Beach. And there was a lot about the neighborhood where I live now that actually reminds me of my neighborhood, with the, you know, the wide lawns and the neighbors, you know, who will come over and bring you Christmas cookies and those kind of things. There are a lot of things that I really love about Noblesville, but I want this to be the best community that it can be. And I also know, as a Black person living in Noblesville, that I haven't always felt welcome. And that, you know, my son didn't always feel welcome at the school. My nieces and nephews who live here have not always felt welcome. I want people who come here behind me to feel included and welcome and safe and happy, so that we can contribute to the community along with our neighbors.
Yeah.
I think that that is what will make this a truly inclusive and welcoming community.
Yeah. If you were to make that really practical, like what is one or two things that you would say as a Noblesville resident or community member, please do this or don't do this?
Hmm. I would say start by educating yourself. So there's that listen piece. So listen to the people of color, the queer people, the, you know, immigrants and things in your own life. You know, talk to them, get to know them, read work, like read books like mine, but read other things that are written by people of color and immigrants, and, you know, learn about those experiences. I think perhaps prepare yourself to let go of feeling like being uncomfortable with change. I
Mm.
think a lot of people that have lived in Noblesville for a long time and have felt like it's always been a great community are scared about the community it's evolving into. I think evolution is wonderful, but you have to contribute to making it a good community. So let go of the idea that change is bad, embrace the fact that change is inevitable, and think about how you can make sure that we have a great community 10, 20 years from now. And then I would say get involved in things that are outside of your comfort zone. And the things that the Noblesville Diversity Coalition does, that's a great place to start.
Mhm. That's good. Yeah, thank you so much. And we have launched our website finally, and have just put up the resource page. So I think that's a great place. If you don't know where to start, start there. And I think once you get started, there's not a limit to the places that it will take you to the next, to the next, to the next, because there are lots of people engaged in this work with lots of great ideas. But it does take some
Yeah,
initiative to move toward that. So
yeah.
gosh, thank you so much for this time. And thank you for choosing to be part of the Noblesville community and to investing your time and energy in your professional work, but also in just being a community member. So super grateful for you being part of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just invite people that are watching, if they want to read more of my work, or stay in touch with what I'm doing, to visit tamarawinfreyharris.com.
And we'll get you added to our resource page so it's easy to find you too. So good deal. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.